Hello and welcome back to my channel Box Office Poison. If you're new here, my name is Moxie McMurder, and this week, bear with me on this, I watched two films. One I'd been meaning to watch for a long time, and the other I just stuck on a whim. Turns out they were both really good, and I was going to make a video about each of them individually, but then I thought, why not combine them? But how? What links them? Well, like I said, bear with me. They were both released in 2009, and they both star a Hemsworth. And I thought, that's a good enough link to make a video about, surely.
I'm not proud of it. I am a bit.
But seriously, the more I thought about putting these two films together, the more it kind of made sense, because they both actually tackle the same theme of identity, but in very different ways. They both play with the idea of an unreliable narrator, only it's the camera that's unreliable. And in both films we see something that actually is not what we thought it was. In A Perfect Getaway, the film that I'm going to talk about, we see wedding scenes. In Triangle, another film we're going to talk about, we see Jess comforting her son after a nightmare, but with a bit of context, these scenes change our perception of who these people are. So let's get into it. The first film I want to talk about is A Perfect Getaway. Somehow this film just slipped right past my radar, and I've no idea how, because it's right up my street, although I didn't know that going in. I knew nothing about the film going in. I didn't even watch a trailer. Just decided to give it a whirl because I really liked the cast. I'll watch anything with Timothy Olyphant and Milla Jovovich, and so I was expecting a relatively simple but well-acted thriller. What I got was a roller coaster that I enjoyed the hell out of. In A Perfect Getaway, the story concerns a pair of newlyweds enjoying their honeymoon in Hawaii, only to discover that a psychopath is murdering tourists on the islands. Milla Jovovich and Steve Zahn are Cliff and Sydney, the newlyweds, and they've just arrived ready to hike a trail to a private beach. They pick up a couple of hitchhikers, enter suspicious couple number one, and things go south pretty quickly. I think Marley Shelton and Chris Hemsworth do a great job here. Cleo has a real Manson family vibe to her, and Cale, her boyfriend, played by Chris Hemsworth, he's really believable as a dude with too much testosterone and a criminal record. We then meet Timothy Olyphant's character Nick, the movie-loving ex-GI with seemingly tall tales about action seen in Iraq and various other places. Cliff is a screenwriter, and Nick seems to think he has some good stories that would make an incredible film.
Well, Nick Cage is always money in my book. I like how he gets all intense right at the end of the sentence. It's like that movie, huh? It's Natural Born Killers.
Oh my god, that movie totally freaked me out.
His character is brilliant, and a clever way to comment on the film through talk about movies. He talks about red herrings, although he calls them red snappers, and mentions things like a hell of a plot twist, and it was just a nice little touch that I wasn't expecting. We're introduced to his girlfriend, Gina, so they are suspicious couple number two, and she's played by Kieli Sanchez, I hope I've pronounced her name correctly, and they decide to travel together because there's safety in numbers.
He is really hard to kill.
And they're all headed to the same spot. Before I go any further into this, you should know I'm about to spoil these two films, A Perfect Getaway and Triangle, so this is your warning. If you haven't seen either of these films, I really do recommend checking them out. A Perfect Getaway was a great thriller that turned out to be a lot of fun, and Triangle will leave you with a lot to think about in a good way. So go watch them and then come back and watch this video. In the meantime, you can watch one of my other videos. And now, the spoilers.
So it would make a hell of an Act 2 twist.
I joked at the beginning of this video about the so-called thread that links these films, but I watched both films twice, and on a more serious note, they both address the theme of identity, who we are, who we think we are, and how others see us. The idea that everyone is a suspect in this film is played to perfection by the cast. Timothy Olyphant is truly perfect casting. He has that friendliness, but with an edge down to a T. And I love all his wild stories. You never really know for sure if all of them are true, but one thing he didn't lie about were his abilities to survive.
I'm a goddamn American Jedi. Possible title #1, by the way.
Yeah, he's really hard to kill.
The reveal that Cliff and Sydney are not in fact the newlywed couple, but are the murderers, was great. I had no idea there was going to be a twist. I think maybe because it's framed as just an average thriller. So I wasn't expecting a twist, and I just did not see it coming. Just like Gina. The flashbacks reveal that once they've murdered a couple, Cliff and Sydney, we later find out his name is Rocky, and we never find out Sydney's real name, they assume the couple's identity. Not just in name, but they try to emulate the behaviour of those victims. They use the same phrases, the same body language.
How did she say? It always amazes me how much people talk about themselves when they're on vacation. Talk to people they just met. Oh wait, what was the other one?
We say screenwriter. We say screenwriter. Writer. We say screenwriter.
Well, whoop-de-ta. Well, whoop-de-ta.
Okay, can we, just for a second, talk about loop-de-ta? Because I swear Gina is saying loop-de-ta. What the fuck is loop-de-ta? I've heard of loop-de-dee, loop-de-da, loop-the-loop, hoopla, all kinds, but I've never heard loop-de-ta, and it just sounds weird. Anyway, moving on. Jovovich and Zahn are really believable as the out-of-their-depth honeymooners who just want to enjoy their holiday, and they are just as at home as the villainous murderers. Oliphant really does shine as Nick, the ex-army, tough as nails, cracking wise, with a suddenly serious side. And while Gina comes across a little bit corny sometimes, I think that's maybe part of the red herring. She sounds like someone making shit up, and that strong accent that just feels a little too forced, but I still liked her character nonetheless. Once it's revealed that Cliff and Sydney are the killers, we see flashbacks of them killing the real Sydney and Cliff. We see them smoking crack. We see Rocky keeping up with forensic shows on TV to keep one step ahead of the FBI. We watch as they change their appearance and modulate their voices to imitate the couple better. And the more time Cliff has spent with Nick, the more of his expressions he copies. We see flashbacks of conversations we've seen them have, but now it's in a different context. I've seen some people complain that they were cheating the audience with some of these conversations, but I actually disagree. On a second viewing, it still made sense. Overall, A Perfect Getaway was a great thriller, with twists and turns I did not see coming, and I really think more people should check it out. Not many people seem to talk about it that often, which I guess is why it flew past my radar. If you enjoyed A Perfect Getaway, I'd recommend checking out films like Identity, Surveillance, and The Hole from 2001. All of them are definitely worth a watch. And now, Triangle. Okay, so I'm so late to the party with this one. I've been meaning to watch Triangle for the longest time, and for whatever reason, I only got round to it this week. Just 12 years too late. As with A Perfect Getaway, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen Triangle, please go watch it. It's absolutely worth watching, and then come back here and listen to me waffle on about it. I did have some of the plot spoiled for me. To be fair, it has been 12 years.
It's been 84 years.
12 years. Jesus. But I didn't have the whole film spoiled for me, which was great, because yes, there are twists and turns everywhere. Triangle is directed by British director Christopher Smith, who did Creep, Severance, and Black Death, all movies that I like, and stars Melissa George, Rachel Carpani, Henry Nixon, Michael Dorman, and a young Liam Hemsworth. There's that connection again. Talking broadly, the film is a psychological thriller that borrows from the slasher subgenre with a little bit of sci-fi for good measure. We meet Jess, a single mother who goes on a boating trip with some friends, and later, when a freak storm takes the boat out, they board an old spooky ocean liner, where they encounter a ruthless killer. Actually, at some point during the film, I wondered how they shot it, whether they actually filmed on a real ocean liner, but it turns out the filmmakers had built part of this ship on a piece of land that stretches out into the ocean in Australia, which I thought was really cool, because I really did think they shot it on a real ocean liner. So if you haven't seen it, go see it, and then come back to this video. And now, the spoilers. You know, I was really tempted to call this bit of the video, "It's all Greek to me," or something equally as obnoxious, but I'm not going to do that. Although that's exactly what I've just done. Point is, this film is a Greek tragedy. The ocean liner they board is called the Aeolus, named after the father of Sisyphus, who, according to the Greek myth, was punished for cheating death twice by being forced to roll an immense boulder up a hill, only for it to roll down every time it neared the top, and repeating this action for eternity. Jess, just like Sisyphus and his boulder, is doomed to repeat her actions over and over again as a sort of penance for, essentially, being a bad mother. So about 20 minutes into the film, we see Jess and the masked killer fight, and she pushes the killer off the boat. Is this the same version of Jess we see screaming at her kid at the end of the film? Because that implies that Jess will always be a stressed mother who takes out her frustrations on her disabled son. I'm running out of breath. Implying that Jess will always be a stressed mother who takes out her frustrations on her disabled son. She's always trying to make up for being a bad mother, and no matter what she does, she's always going to shout at him, she's always going to hit him, and ultimately, she's always going to be responsible for his death in the car crash. Towards the end of the film, when we see the pile of dead seagulls, it's clear to Jess that she's still in the loop. I believe the loop actually starts when Jess is on the yacht and falls asleep for a couple of hours. That's when she dreams of the beach, and when she wakes up, she only has a vague sense of déjà vu when she's on the ship. She doesn't remember what's happened, and has no idea what's about to happen. After the car crash, she meets death, or, if you want to be super literal, she meets Charon, the ferryman who carries the dead across the River Styx. The River Styx being what divided the living from the dead, much like the Bermuda Triangle, which the film heavily implies is what brought on the freak electrical storm at the beginning, although it's never specifically mentioned. She tells the taxi driver, or Charon, that she'll be back, but we know she won't be. She approaches the boat with a look of what we can assume is a sort of steely determination to end the loop, knowing what she knows now. Only we know that she will forget what she knows when she falls asleep. She's destined to repeat these loops forever, never saving her son, never being a better mother. Paying close attention will really reward you in this film. It's really well crafted and well thought out, and it boggles my brain sometimes when I think about it. And also, there are plenty of references to things like The Shining dotted about, which on repeated viewings you can pick up on, and it's kind of cool. I dig that. I also like that throughout these different timelines or loops, we pick up slight differences in conversations, and things like the wound on Jess's face after she's been shot at are the same wounds on her face after the car crash at the end. On the ocean liner, we briefly see a logo on the bandstand in the ballroom, which is also the logo on the drum of the kid who witnessed the car crash at the end. The symbol's a really nice touch because it evokes the alpha and the omega symbols, the beginning and the end. I also like the homage or reference to The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, a poem about a sailor who kills an albatross and is then cursed. The seagull that hits Jess's car before the crash is a nice link to that, and I enjoyed that being brought into the narrative. So, as I mentioned, both these films cover the theme of identity. When it's revealed that Jess isn't the warm-hearted mother she thinks she is, and has murdered her double and is actually abusive towards her son, we are just as disgusted and stunned as she is, with herself. It's such an interesting story. And because of the way it's all framed, I actually wondered if Jess had killed her son at the beginning of the film after she hit him, and it was his body in the bag that she put in the boot of her car, and these loops were her punishment. But actually I think it's more likely that she and her son died in the car crash, and she feels guilty for being a bad mum and causing the crash. Examining identity through the different versions of Jess, and who she thinks she is, who we think she is, and who she really is really interesting and will, like I said, leave you with a lot of questions and a lot to think about. The whole cast put in a great performance, and it's a compelling story. If you enjoyed Triangle and you're looking for something else that's somewhat similar, I'd recommend checking out Time Crimes, Coherence, and Enemy. They're all great films and are definitely worth your time. Now, if you've seen Triangle, or indeed A Perfect Getaway, please leave a comment below telling me what you thought of both films. YouTube loves it when you leave a comment. I love it when you leave a comment. So get tapping. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please give the video a thumbs up, and while you're there, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content. Stay spooky, folks.